The following program on BSSE Television is produced by KBIA-FM, Mid-Missouri Public Radio, and the Reynolds Journalism Institute at the Missouri School of Journalism.
Welcome to the television edition of Radio Friends, where we feature guests from all over Central Missouri. Today, we'll find out more about Black History Month and grief loss counseling. All that and a lot more. So let's get started right now. Barb has written a book called Three Penny Memories, a poetic memoir. And this is a tribute to your mother.
Yes, it's a love story for sure.
Yes, and you were caring for your mom. She died when she was 90...
Or 89.
89 years of age. And you pretty much talk about dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yes.
With these poems.
Yes.
Was this difficult to write? Were you writing as you were going through the experience or afterward?
Through the experience, I was pretty busy working full time and also trying to be her second brain, her brain
Right.
and my brain and in my head. So I was really busy, but once she died, I started writing poems about her and us. And I compiled many poems. I was trying to figure out how to put it together. So I took a course online called Memoir Writing Inc. It was during the pandemic, and a lot of things were available online that weren't before. And I figured out how to organize it. So it's organized into 3 parts, like a novel almost. In fact,
Right.
my publisher started reading the poems, and she wrote to me and said, "This is like a novel." It says 3 acts, 3 major parts, spanning the life with my mother, when I was growing up, then when she moved here, and then when she died. So
Right.
3 stages.
And in writing, didn't it feel like it brought you closer to your mom?
Yes.
Even though she had passed away, her spirit
Yeah.
and soul was still living with you.
It still is.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, she and my dad I feel like they're always with me.
I know exactly what you're talking about because my mom and I were especially close. And she dealt with cancer for 18 years. When she died, and we took care of her till the end, and she
Right.
died at home, at our
Right.
house. But when she died, even though the body was gone, I felt like Mom was still with me and
Yeah.
still is. And there are many, many days that I still feel her.
Right.
There was one time, and I don't want to get off the subject, This is about you, but I just remember so other people maybe can relate to it. I remember it was one time shortly after she had died, and all at once I felt her standing behind me to the point that I turned around to look, and I felt her presence there.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you've had the same thing.
I have lots of stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. It's
So
amazing.
let's go on about the book here now.
Okay.
So it's in 3 parts.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you finished it when?
Oh boy. So the very last draft was finished last summer, and I sent it to the publisher, who had accepted it in spring.
Yeah.
So
basically 3 different parts of her life.
Yeah. Our life together. Yeah.
Yes, and you wanted to share one of the poems today. I'd like
Right.
for you to read.
Yeah.
What chapter would this be in?
This is in the middle section, I believe, that when she moved here and things were starting to, I noticed that there was a problem with
Recalling.
decay, recall, just her coming unassembled in a way, her
Right.
mind. So, so the book is really good for caregivers. I think this book would be something to share with other caregivers because as I was helping her, I kept doubting myself. One thing that inspired the book was my uncle asking me, "Do you love your mother?" When I told him that she was coming to live closer to me, because I told Mom, choose one child, so she chose me. And he said, "Barbara, do you love her?" And I thought, why is he asking me that question? Of course I love her, and then I thought maybe I have to think about how much I love her to do this job.
Right.
And so this book was an exploration of myself as much as the relationship and all the aspects of our relationship. Why wouldn't I love her? Why would I be mad at her? Why do I love her? So it's a very multi-leveled book, really, emotionally. And
I understand.
so this poem, The Caregiver's Craft, reflects the self-doubt, the love and worry that I think a lot of caregivers may express, and a lot of times I hear them say how much of a gift it is. It is a gift to be able to care for an aging parent. I'm so grateful she moved here. But on the other hand, there is a lot of deep emotional exploration. Yeah, turmoil.
A lot of emotional turmoil.
Yeah, that goes on. Okay.
Go ahead and read the poem.
So, The Caregiver's Craft. I'm only a human, Mom, seeking perfection for my care for you, weaving the yarn like you taught and retaught. I keep forgetting to practice. You say my head is always in my books. I anchor my hook into rhythm in each row, putting the colors of your care in place, counting the stitches like the meter in a poem, casting off, crocheting my lines, each stitch a thought, a memory, a discovery. What am I crafting for you, comfort or chaos? Will everything turn out? I study the creation, pleased. Some rows proclaim symmetry, coherence to form. I revel in the virtuosity, clarity of hue, as though I have hooked into radiance. But other rows meander like a stream, wandering around the bedrocks, threads in some rows, weeds tangled in the mud of past despair, memories to be forgotten, words that should have been left unsaid, plans gone awry, fitful dreams, diminished hope, as though gripping this hook cripples my thinking, my loving. Where am I heading, Mom? Do I have it right yet? Your care and well-being, being a doting daughter, daunting. I'm only a human, unraveling our knots.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. And listening to the words, hopefully other people who are caregivers can gather some strength from that.
Yeah.
The book is Three Penny Memories, a poetic memoir. And where is it available?
It's at Skylark locally and also on Amazon.
Okay. So Skylark Bookstore and on Amazon. And you have a blog?
Yeah, Extraordinary Sunshine Weaver.
Wow. Extraordinary Sunshine Weaver.
It's on WordPress.
You were telling me before we came on, because I was asking you about the history of Black History Month, and you said it started out as Black History Week. When was that?
That was sometime in the early 20th century, so around 100 years ago or so.
And then it became Black History Month. What was the main reason or the most important reason why Black History Month came about?
You know, I would have to do as a librarian, a bit of more research about the context of the founding of Black History Month in its time. However, today I can tell you that it's a way that all Americans can get a little bit beyond the sound bites and the most superficial facts of the Black involvement in U.S. history and the fact that kind of that the Black people existed in this country since before it was a country and have done many things. Getting beyond the most basic things. Like, for example, I grew up in Maryland, and there was a part of fourth grade history where you learned about Maryland history. And we learned about Harriet Tubman because Harriet Tubman was from Maryland, and we learned that she founded the Underground Railroad and managed to help people escape from slavery in the South and come to safety. And that was great to learn, but that was kind of the soundbite version. And in Black History Month, we can learn things like she was a Union spy. I mean, she was not simply someone who, it was plenty that she managed to physically get people out of harm's way, but she was also providing information in the context of the Civil War, and in that way it was a military mover and shaker as well as just the immediate thing that you learn about her. It's a chance to really get in depth about really interesting and important parts of the history of this country and the world.
When you talk about slavery, some some people would like to just sweep this under the rug, but it is part of the history of this country.
Oh, it's part of the economic development of this country, and people often think that it was only the South that was involved in slavery. Not really. I mean, the North made a lot of money selling cotton that came from the slave economy in the South, and fortunes were built in the North based on that. And so really, in this country, nobody's hands are clean when it comes to slavery.
When you think about Black History Month now in 2023, what are you trying to accomplish with this, and especially with the university?
It's a good chance to get together with the public library to sort of bring an event that's really a lot of fun, that gets beyond. I mean, I think many people, when you say, if you were to do a word association test, you might say Black history, and you might come up with important names: Martin Luther King Jr., Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, people. But one of the terms that would come up probably right away in word association is slavery, and part of what we're trying to do is expand far beyond that and sort of say, I mean, there is a whole period after slavery that's important for the way that the United States has turned out today. There is a whole period before slavery during which not all Black people were voiceless. There was just a job candidate who came yesterday to apply for a Black Studies position at Mizzou, and his whole topic was the universities in the North where there were Black students and how they get, like at Oberlin College, the commencement speaker one year was a Black woman who gave abolitionist speeches. I mean, it was not as though even during the time of slavery that all Black Americans were completely suppressed in their ability to act.
We're almost out of time here, but there are a couple of events that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, well, let's see. I know we're having an international speaker on the 28th. I don't know as much the details on that, but keep your eyes open. Yeah, 28th of February. You can just Google Black History Month Mizzou to get all of the different events and speakers that are coming on campus. But the event that I've been most involved in is Trivia Night, and it is 25th of February at the Columbia Public Library. 6 o'clock dinner. We're providing dinner, and 6:30 is the gameplay begins. And we've had a good turnout of people from MU and people from outside of MU. We've had families come and get library cards for the first time there. And it's a lot of just good, clean fun. And my piece of advice, if you want to win Trivia Night, is build a diverse team. You don't even have to come with a team. You can just form a team with the people that show up. And the best teams, the ones that win, are the ones that have older people and younger people and MU people and not MU people, Black people, not Black people. I mean, the more diverse, the better.
Very diverse.
Yes, that is the winning strategy, I can tell you right now, because we pick questions from all eras. We have multimedia questions, name that tune questions. We have local people in questions.
All right.
Yeah.
So the date is February the
25th. Saturday night. Yeah, we are opening we are kind of closing down the public library. It's going to stay open just for us.
Okay, that will be February 25th, Saturday night,
yes.
6 o'clock. How do the people, how do they get tickets or be part of it?
Well, the event is on the public library calendar, and you can also go to library.missouri.edu/trivia. Right. That is the registration form.
Good to have you here. He brought out some laminate flooring, and I said, okay, so how does this fit into the eco-friendly service that we talk about all the time?
So Tough Core laminate is a great fit for young families when they're expecting an active household with pets, children, and they may not have the money right now to invest in a natural product like a hardwood floor or another surface. This Tough Core laminate is a great solution. It's Forest Stewardship Council certified. That means
it's what now?
Forest Stewardship Council certified.
What does that mean?
That means that their practices for the milling and the composition of the core. It meets their standards.
Okay.
And
it's the core actually is recycled hardwood.
High density fiberboard. They've also put the repellent, the waxed repellent that makes it that 30-hour moisture resistance into the core.
Okay.
So it's extremely resistant to moisture, which wasn't always the reputation for laminate flooring.
Okay, so what you were telling me is if the dog or the cat has an accident on it, and it can sit there for 30 hours, and it's not going to stain it.
So they have a 30-hour moisture shield technology on this, and they say that the water will evaporate before it damages the floor.
If you're concerned about the kitty cat or doggies having a little accident, 30 hours, now hopefully you'll clean it up before 30 hours passes.
And keep in mind, warranties are always under normal conditions.
Right, right. And if you spill soda or a glass of wine, it's not going to stain it.
Yeah, laminate is the most stain-resistant flooring out there, coming right out of the box.
Yeah. And, the thing that is important to me when we talk about this stuff is we always like to use as much renewable products as possible. And this is made from recycled products.
Yes. It's basically sawdust that they collect, and that's the main composition of the core.
Yeah, which is important. Which is important for the environment.
And another thing is it lasts a really long time.
When you say a long time,
and when it lasts a long time, that's the same thing as being environmentally friendly.
Right, because you're not going to have to replace it.
That's right.
What's this called again?
This is called Tough Core Premium Laminate.
Okay. So if you want more information on that, you can give my friend there, Scott Bradley, a call over at Carpet One Floor and Home, and tell him you want to find out about that. What?
Tough Core.
Premium environmentally friendly flooring. That's what we talk about here. Environmentally friendly.
Indoor environment and outdoor environment.
Got it.
Yes.
Oh, you can use this outdoor too?
No.
No.
But it's good for the outdoor environment.
Good for the outdoor. You got it, Scott.
Saves
Thank
trees.
you.
That's right.
Thank you so much for coming by. It's a pleasure to have you.
I love it. Thank you.
All right. Now I want to introduce you to Jerry Kiesling. Jerry is a counselor here in Columbia, and we're going to talk about counseling for grief and loss, which we all go through at one time in our life. Welcome to Radio Friend, Jerry.
Thank you, Paul.
You deal with counseling for seniors, people who have lost loved ones or friends going through a hard time, right?
And caregivers and...
and you counsel for caregivers too.
Exactly.
Because sometimes caregivers can feel like they've got their back up against the wall.
That's right. And that's something that a lot of people get burned out doing.
Yes, but you do it in love, but it's important that you realize while you are a caregiver, you must also look out for yourself too and take some breaks there.
And that's really difficult to do because when you're in the caregiver role, it's easy to feel like if I do something for myself, I'm
being selfish.
Right. And I have a lot of guilt about it.
And you shouldn't feel that way.
Right.
You need to know when to ask somebody to come in and relieve you for a short period of time so you can recharge your batteries. That's so very important. But let's talk about grief counseling. What can happen to somebody who is going through a really big loss in their life and grieving and not knowing how to deal with it properly?
It can be a great feeling of being alone, being by yourself, being isolated. And a lot of times after someone has died, after a few weeks or months, it's like you feel maybe like others don't want to hear how you're feeling inside. And so it's easy to hold that inside. And the great thing about counseling is it can be your place to process what's happened, the good and the bad, the anger, and keep your loved one alive. So we do a lot of those things in counseling.
What can happen to somebody who is really going through, having a hard time dealing with the loss, and they don't reach out to talk to somebody about it? Whether it be a counselor or a friend, just somebody that will listen.
Yeah, and, sometimes people don't sleep well, Sometimes people don't eat well, and that can really take a physical toll on a person after a while. And so it doesn't change that someone has died that you love. And it changes that you grow around that loss. And that helps you approach every day in a better way.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to realize that just because that person has died does not mean that they're gone out of your life. They will always be a part of your life. You can open your heart up and feel them in your life and in your heart, and they're with you. And it's important to talk about that, to have somebody that understands how you feel and what you're looking for.
Definitely, because I think the one misperception that people have is that if they let go of how sad they are, then the person will go away as well.
No.
And it doesn't happen that way.
No, it sure doesn't. It doesn't. Just think of this. The person that you love so much, they don't want you to feel sad. They don't want you to feel bad and crying all the time. You can let go of that sorrow, but still feel the love.
Definitely. And, initially it is going to hurt very badly because that's someone that you shared love with and closeness. And that's really important to process that and come to a point where, you can see what you need to do.
You wanted to talk specifically about some actual events that took place.
Yes, I mean, the theme this year is Black resistance. And so we thought for our annual Black History Month display at Ellis Library from the State Historical Society, we would do a deep dive into the sharecroppers' strike of 1939.
So what happened there?
Well, what happened is it's during the Depression, and the federal government is trying to help farmers. So one of the things they did is to keep the prices stable. Some farmers were asked to leave their land fallow. And
Not plant anything.
Yes, and then they would get subsidies. Well,
so the federal government would pay the farmers not to plant.
That's right. Now, in southern Missouri, a lot of the actual work was done by the sharecroppers.
Okay.
And some people even say it was sort of just an extension of slavery. These people were very poor. They lived in shacks on the land of the planters. And what happened is, in order to keep all the money for themselves, a number of these planters evicted their sharecroppers at the beginning of 1939. At the beginning of the year.
Let me back this up again. The government was paying them the same amount of money that they would make.
That's right.
If they had plants on the land, if they were farming it. With that money, they were paying the sharecroppers.
That's right.
So the government says, do not plant anything, but we'll still pay you the same amount.
Yes.
Now, the decent thing to do then would have been to also pay the sharecroppers.
That's right.
But they didn't do that.
But that didn't happen. And so these poor families, and there were thousands of people affected by this, were evicted. They didn't have any place to go. It was January, and there was a labor leader who was also a reverend, Owen Whitfield, who thought, we ought to do something about this. Let's have a strike, and we will show the people of Missouri and the people of the nation how these people have been mistreated. So what they did was ask those people to take all their belongings, everything they had, and camp along the roadsides in the Boot Heel on the highways 60 and 61. And so these highways were lined with these displaced sharecroppers. And they would hold things like prayer meetings. I brought a couple of pictures. This first one is a picture of a family hovered around a stove. They've made a makeshift tent. This is how they were living. And so they were really desperate. But they got together. The idea was they were going to peacefully protest. Prayer and religion was a big part of it. And they were going to let the world know what was happening.
Now, I'm looking at this picture, and this was not a set-up picture. This was actual. This was real.
The photographer, a famous Post-Dispatch photographer named Arthur Whitman, went down to the Boot Heel And he brought some lights, so the images are lit, but it's at night, and he lit some different things that he was seeing down there. And this is one of those little campsites, and it's a
and
family.
they're camping. It looks like all they had was a couple of blankets or rugs for a roof, a potbelly stove, and the rest of their belongings, and they're exposed to the elements in January. January.
So this was a pretty rough situation. And then there were a number of prayer meetings. So I also brought an image of two women at one of these prayer meetings. One of them is holding her baby.
And if you're watching this on television or on the internet, look at that picture very closely, because you can see the tears flowing down her face.
Yeah. Now, this story has sort of a happy ending. They remain relatively poor, but Owen Whitfield's work leads to a number of different charity groups helping to rehabilitate these sharecroppers, buying them land, giving it to them to own communally. And so they begin to farm their own land and get money back for the community.
Mm-hmm. And then you brought a picture, and this is what?
This is the bathhouse at Cropperville, which is the place that was set up for these sharecroppers. And this bathhouse that they're building is going to allow them to have fresh water for bathing. Now, of course, they don't have indoor plumbing. This is still pretty primitive living, but it's much better than it was before, and they have autonomy over themselves instead of working for a landowner.
So this would be in the 1940s, then?
This was 1942, this particular... Cropperville started in 1939, but by the time they're building the bathhouse, they build a school. It becomes a sort of a famous community in Missouri where the sharecroppers are in control of their own lives.
This is a very interesting story. It's a sad story. It's a heart-wrenching story.
Yeah.
But it's facts.
Yeah. And it's also a story of resilience, how Black resistance can lead to change. So some people say this is a role model for some of the civil rights leaders later on, many of them who also used religion as part of what they were doing to institute change, to call attention to their plight. And so Owen Whitfield was really a precursor to people like Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm. These photographs will be on display
in Ellis Library throughout the semester. And then I will be speaking on the photo exhibit on February 22nd at 2:30 at Ellis Library. So everybody is welcome to come and hear a little bit more about the history of this important event, and also about how the newspapers were involved in publicizing this and bringing it to national attention.
That's fantastic, Joan. Thank you so much. And just the information that you shared with us today is heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
You will be talking about the same topics, but with a lot more time.
A lot more. And I'll be able to show more photographs. I'll be able to tell a little bit more about the photographer, Arthur Whitman, and also the Reverend Whitfield. And we can see how this story is an inspirational story. It's a sad story, but an inspirational story.
Give us the date and time again.
It is going to be Wednesday, February 22nd at 2:30 at Ellis Library on MU campus.
And it's free of charge?
Yes, free of charge.
Right. Joan Stack, thank you so much for coming by. It's always a pleasure to have you. Drop me an email, something you'd like to hear at cpepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.